Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Nega Manchetti and Charlie State.
Our headlines today. Britain and France agree to step up efforts to stop people crossing the Channel after 27 drowned when their boat sank as they tried to reach the UK.
The French Interior Minister says it's a day of national grief. French ministers will hold crisis talks this morning.
The first people responsible for this despicable situation are the smugglers.
We'll hear from people trying to reach the UK and ask why they're willing to risk their lives crossing the world's busiest shipping lane in tiny inflatable boats.
Where are you going now?
Go UK! Go UK!
It's Thursday, the 25th of November. The Prime Minister and President Macron of France have agreed to step up joint efforts to prevent illegal crossings of the Channel after at least 27 people drowned when their boat collapsed off the coast of northern France.
4 suspected traffickers have been arrested on suspicion of being linked to the sinking. John Donnison has the latest.
Along the northern French coast, the search for the missing went on long after dark. But with temperatures in single digits, the chance of finding anyone alive increasingly remote. At least 27 bodies have been recovered, the biggest loss of life in the Channel since it became a preferred route of people traffickers.
The first people responsible for this despicable situation are the smugglers. That is to say, criminals who, for a few thousand euros, organise the trafficking of human beings from Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa and Asia.
It's thought around 25 boats like this set off from the beaches of northern France yesterday.
Where are you going now?
Go UK! Go UK!
This one, we know, made it across the Channel, but it's a treacherous journey across one of the world's busiest shipping lanes.
This disaster underscores how dangerous it is to cross the Channel in this way. And it also shows how vital it is that we now step up our efforts to break the business model of the gangsters who are sending people to sea in this way.
Last night, the government's Cobra Emergency Committee met and the Prime Minister held an urgent phone call with the French President Emmanuel Macron. Downing Street said the two men agreed to step up joint efforts to prevent the crossings.
Any decisions made? Evening.
And to stop the gangs putting people's lives at risk. But people the BBC spoke to at this Calais migrant camp last night said they would keep trying to reach the UK. Uday said he attempted to cross earlier this week, but gave up because the waves were too high.
We need to create safe and legal routes for people to get here through planned resettlement programmes and family reunion. And we also need to have a safe and fair asylum system here so that people, when they've made their journeys, can claim asylum and be fairly assessed.
In Calais last night, people demanding refugees be better treated held a vigil for those who died. After a year of record numbers crossing the Channel, people on all sides of the argument had warned this was a tragedy waiting to happen. John Donnison, BBC News.
Well, let's speak to our correspondent Simon Jones, who's in Dover for us this morning. Very good morning to you, Simon. So it's been a very harrowing 24 hours. We know the politicians are talking. Tell us a little bit more about what do we know about what's happening on the ground.
Well, it may potentially be a bit windy for crossings today, but over the past few weeks, it's thought up to 10 people have lost their lives out there in the Channel before yesterday's tragedy. But that didn't stop hundreds of people attempting the crossing yesterday. We know many people were brought to Dover by the border force and by the lifeboat. The French authorities rescued 106 people in the Channel, but sadly 27 of those were pronounced dead. Now, initially it was thought the death toll was as high as 31. That was revised downwards overnight. I think when these boats take to the water, it can be an extremely confusing situation. They're often dangerously overloaded. We know 2 survivors were pulled from the water, but they were in a bad state, so communication with them would have been extremely difficult, but extremely worrying for the authorities on both sides of the Channel. We don't know much yet about the people involved, where exactly they were from, or why this boat capsized. There has been some reports reports in the French media that it was potentially hit by a container ship, but this hasn't been confirmed. It may simply be the boat wasn't seaworthy at all. The French authorities talking about it being extremely fragile. Now, there have been many initiatives over recent months to try to stop these crossings, upping the patrols on beaches in northern France, talk of turning boats back at sea, but that hasn't had any success. Boats haven't been turned back, and so for the authorities now, a real challenge to prevent further tragedies as we go into winter.
Simon, for the moment, thank you.
Well, our political correspondent Damien Grammaticus is in Westminster for us. Damien, morning to you. As you were hearing there from Simon, so many initiatives have been put in place to try to prevent these crossings from taking place. And now we're here. Boris Johnson, of course, chaired a meeting of the Emergency Cobra Committee last night. We understand crisis talks will be happening in France amongst ministers there. What next?
Well, what next? I think we'll see probably a renewed joint effort between the UK and France to try to come up with ways to deal with this. That will follow on, I think, from the lead given from that conversation between the Prime Minister and President Macron in France yesterday, where they talked about stepping up joint work. The difficulty here is that the UK side has been wanting to have joint patrols, UK involvement on French beaches, joint patrols of boats in the Channel, and that hasn't been acceptable to the French side. So in short of that, what then is the action the UK can take? Well, we see that there is the Home Secretary here has the Nationalities and Borders Bill, which is going through Parliament. That will make it tougher for people trying to come through this route, to try to deter them. It will include measures such as a two-tier system. So if you arrive on a boat across the Channel, then you will get a lower status. You will have less recourse or no recourse to public funds here, less time in the UK, 30 months in the UK is what you might be given under that process. So the idea there is to try to make it less attractive, but we've had the Home Secretary and others talk for a long time about making this route unviable, and the difficulty there is that, as you heard in that report, people will still want to come and do still want to come despite those measures, and the most difficult thing really is removing people once they do come, and the UK does not have, since Brexit, agreements with EU countries to do that, to send them back once they cross the Channel.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.